Hello and welcome to the Financial Time Travelers Podcast. This is episode 13. Today is yesterday's tomorrow.
And how do we do?
I don't know, but I just
Episode 13, week of Halloween. That's amazing.
Monday!
Do you think we know what we're doing?
What are we going to do for Halloween? We should do a duo costume. You read the Friday 5 that I did, right?
Yeah.
You didn't even read it.
Yeah, I did.
You know what the best one was?
No.
Phil Connors, Ted Ryerson.
Yeah.
You know the scene in Groundhog Day, which
Right.
is an amazing
Right.
time travel movie. A lot of people
Right. I love
forget that it's
I love
all
that
about
movie.
time travel.
Right.
Well, it's not all about time travel, but
Right.
time travel plays a big part in the plot. And Ned Ryerson, that's who it is.
Yeah.
You know when he's walking?
Ned
The best-
Ryerson.
So I put in the
Life insurance, annuities, auto insurance, homeowners insurance. This is my best day ever.
the beginning of that scene when he walks by the homeless guy and he pretends like he's looking for money,
Yeah.
but he's not.
Uh-huh.
He just does this.
Right.
And then he like sighs of relief when he finally gets by him.
Yeah.
And then what's his name walks up. Phil Connors?
Uh-huh.
You remember me? He's like, who are you? Ned Ryerson. Anyways, I thought that would be funny.
Uh-huh.
Or like Click with Christopher Walken. We could do that because I do a great Walken impression.
Yep.
And all you have to do is make fun of him. Click the menu button.
Yep.
What, the menu on the remote? No, the menu at Red Lobster.
Yeah.
Yes, on the remote.
Watch out for that first step. It's a doozy. All right, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about how the future affects our decisions, how we value the future, and most importantly, like breaking down the concept of time travel, psychological time travel, and how we can use technology as something that helps us achieve our goals at a faster rate. I'm going to go 2 ears over because I'm not a DJ.
And why people consistently don't make good decisions on a day-to-day basis.
Yep.
So we're going to dive
make
into
bad
some
decisions.
scientific. So bear with us for a little bit.
This guy-
We're going to dive into some scientific information about time travel.
I just did some repair on our friend here, his arm.
All right. Let's get to it.
It's working. All right, so part 1. Let's talk about the science of time as we know it. Let's get into the deep stuff. So
All right.
as the theory of the 3 arrows of time that our boy outlined in A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. So Stephen Hawking introduced it. The book was written, I want to say, in 1989. But it's his theory that he kind of developed with, obviously, a corroboration with these physicists in his area,
In his book,
astrophysicists.
A Brief History of Time.
Brief History of Time is the
Okay.
book. So he outlines 3 different arrows of time. We have thermodynamic time, which involves entropy and the constant state of things that are in an enclosed environment that will constantly degrade.
Right.
And that's why we get older and blah, 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 blah.
And I like what you put here, the direction in which disorder decreases.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's constant. Everything is constantly getting worse. If you roll a glass ball off the table, which is his example, and it shatters, and you come back in a million years, it's never going to be in a better state. It's constantly going to decompose.
Right.
Cosmological time is that the universe is constantly expanding.
Right.
And so if it was contracting, everything would go in reverse order. But because it's expanding, everything's moving outward, and entropy has to move along that same line with the expanse of the universe. Now, scientists propose that maybe in the future the universe is going to contract once it reaches a certain point, like a balloon expanding, contracting, but that's in like a million, billion, trillion, gazillion years.
And then third?
The third is psychological time.
No, you did that.
No, I didn't.
Cosmological time.
I did that. That's the universe expanding.
Right.
If I confuse you, I'm definitely confusing them.
Okay. All right.
So,
All right. Thermodynamic, cosmological.
Which
now
is
we're
the
in
second law of thermodynamics.
Right.
Entropy. Cosmological time, universe is expanding, move away.
Right.
The third arrow of time is psychological time, how we perceive time, how we feel emotionally through time. Not only that, but how we order things chronologically. As we remember events in history, we put them on a timeline, right?
Right.
And from young age to old age, all of these arrows must move in the same direction, according to Stephen Hawking. Now, what
arrows pointing of time.
Right.
Okay.
And he would destroy me if we had this conversation together.
Right.
But he's not here.
Right.
And I have the microphone, so there's that line from the wedding singer.
To his credit, though, it's a very deep, very big book. And, And so, listeners, stay with us. We're going to get somewhere with this. But this is some really neat stuff about time and how we make decisions.
And it's rooted in real science, which is why I brought up Stephen Hawking, because when I talk about time travel and psychological time travel, people look at me like I'm a crazy man on the History Channel talking about ancient aliens, when in fact what I am discussing is rooted in science, and it starts with Stephen Hawking. For me, it started there and learning about everything we know about time, and that book is an incredible outline. If you're interested in what we know about time, black holes, everything about how the universe expands and the gravity waves, blah, blah, blah. It's all in that book. So third one, psychological time. How we experience time, how we feel through time, how we achieve our goals and remember them. Mm-hmm. We can only remember events as they occurred on the corresponding arrow of time. So that's why we're locked in on this Gregorian calendar that we exist on.
Okay.
But I propose that how we experience time, we can manipulate the third. So we can't change the second law of thermodynamics unless you have a flux capacitor.
Correct.
You can't change that the universe is expanding unless you're a third-party entity.
Right.
Basically, God figure.
Right.
The only one who can change that. However, how we think, how we perceive time
and experience,
I think can be manipulated. I mean, we have schizophrenics out there.
Right.
So why can't we be schizophrenic?
Well, what's interesting, and we're going to get into the second part now. We're getting into the second part here, where how we experience today.
Right.
Was at one point the future, right? So
a year ago, today is just yesterday's tomorrow.
Correct.
Tomorrow will be the second tomorrow's yesterday.
Right. So if you want to experience a great today, you need to start planning on that yesterday.
Right.
And so what we're going to look at is how we experience time, and we're going to break it down into two definitions.
Break it down.
We're going to break it down to.
Can we put a drum break in?
Framework happiness. Break it down. Framework happiness,
which is
versus temporary happiness. So framework. Well, let's start with the easy one. Temporary happiness is easy. We have a bowl of ice cream. Enjoy it.
It's momentary.
Yeah, it's great. Anything that
you go out to dinner, you have a steak, you enjoy it, and then it's gone.
Listening to a great album, watching a great movie.
Yeah.
Momentary, temporary happiness.
It feels good now, but I'm not going to sustain this level of cognitive ecstasy for the rest of my life.
Right. And then the second one is framework happiness. And this is a much deeper, more permanent experience that is sustainable. In fact, if you look at construction, the definition of framework in construction is defined as the essential supporting structure of a building. So without framework, your building will collapse. And so your temporary experience today...
Building, vehicle, or object.
Okay, that's true. So your temporary happiness that you experience this moment will be more consistent and more sustainable if your framework happiness that you planned for 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago has been put in place. And so that's a key that we're talking about in time travel. Of course, we don't have the answer to time travel. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this podcast.
No.
But we do have ways of looking at time.
And we've watched and observed so many people who achieve things at a faster rate. They can compress time. They can compress what we experience when you take something that takes 10 years for someone else to reach their goal. If you can reach it in 5, that's psychological time travel for me. When people achieve these amazing lifetimes, how we measure time. I mean, once it gets to a certain speed, we're talking about light years, and it has nothing to do with the measurement of feet at that point. It's the measurement of time. How long does it take a light
and your experience
to go for a year round?
Right.
And for us, we could start measuring things in lifetimes, perhaps. How many lifetimes does it take to experience? Well, if you can compress that, you're compressing psychological time.
Absolutely.
Mind-blowing stuff. We might win a Nobel Award for this. Whose phone needs to go on silent? I think it's mine. But continue.
And the point of Financial Time Traveler is the ability to help you achieve your goals. If you have a 5-year goal, how you can get there in 2. That's time travel, because then you've got an extra 3 years of your life. You experience what you expected to experience in 5 years in 2. That's time travel.
Now, why?
And it's a balance of temporary happiness replaced with some investment in framework happiness. So that your temporary happiness is more continual and more repetitive.
So temporary happiness, eating a bowl of ice cream. Framework happiness, I am a person of purpose. I'm a person of value. I wake up every day and I put small efforts each step day by day that help me achieve this goal of being the person that I've always wanted to be and creating and offering something.
So to your example of ice cream, so you get a bowl of ice cream, maybe it was given to you, and you enjoy it.
Dairy-free.
Framework is you went out and got a decent job, and you can buy all the ice cream you want for as long as you want, right? So that's temporary crashing and meeting in with framework, the two working together.
Permanent temporary happiness?
Right, exactly. And I like what your observation here is, how much marketing is focused on our temporary happiness.
Oh.
And it's obvious for two reasons. One, we want it now. And two, once we consume it, what do we need to do? Buy more.
Right.
So marketers and manufacturers and retailers, they love feeding our temporary happiness because it's not sustainable, and we're going to constantly be buying more.
Right.
So your observation, listening to your radio, how many advertisements, watching football, and we've got the World Series going on, watch the advertisement, how much of it is directed towards temporary happiness and how much is really geared towards building your framework happiness, your ability to have a solid foundation, a supporting structure.
That's a challenge that we have for all of our listeners. After you're done listening to this, turn on the AM/FM radio.
Right.
I know you'll have a hard time locating it because no one knows what it is anymore. But turn it on, take a peek, listen, take a tally, look at the billboards, look at your magazines. When you're walking through the mall with your kids, take a look at, is there anything here that's necessary, or is this all discretionary goods versus staple goods?
We talked about that. But how much is focusing in on your temporary
happiness versus your framework happiness?
Right. Even now, they used to talk about it in advertising and movie theaters, how the cognitive type of suggestive advertising, and they blink in between frames, and our minds couldn't really read it, but our subconscious was reading it, and suddenly we want to go buy popcorn. Now they don't even do that. It's just like, here's popcorn, you want more.
You're getting into a conspiracy there, because there are other people who think that they put in these silent signals in theaters, frequency, not in your TV, your radio,
right now,
and that there's someone whispering to you saying you need to go buy a car.
Yeah.
But it's at these frequencies that your ears can't pick up, but your brain does.
Right. Because your brains absorb everything.
Total conspiracy.
So part one was a little brief discussion of scientific history and studies on time. Second part here is identifying two components of happiness: framework happiness, which is the essential supporting structure of your life, versus temporary happiness. Now, Niall, we're going to move into the third part here: the science of time preferences. Why do we, as humans, continually make poor decisions?
So there is a lot of science backing. They've done a lot of studies on time values, why we consistently will choose something that feeds us today versus something that feeds us at a later date even more. One great experiment that Stanford did was they offered random selection of their studies, or their why am I missing the word here? Help me out.
Research?
The people that are in the experiment.
Right.
What do they call them? The subjects.
Subjects.
Thank you very much. They stopped being humans. They're now subjects. The subjects of their experiment that were randomly selected.
Until they paid them their $5.
And I think they even had They did this with kids. So they offered them an Oreo today, or 2 Oreos tomorrow. All the kids picked Oreo today, versus the Oreo tomorrow. 2 Oreos tomorrow. And then they said, well, you choose the second set. You can have an Oreo in 365 days, or you can have 2 Oreos in 366 days. And everybody was like, well, if I have to wait over 300 days, I'll just wait one more. What's one more extra day?
All right.
And I'll get the 2.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they realized the cognitive dissonance of these are just 24-hour windows, and then they gave them the option to go back and change their first selection. Almost everybody went back and changed their first selection. I'll wait another day and get 2.
Right.
Because in the second subset, I'm waiting another day to get 2 as well. What's the difference?
Same one day.
And what was interesting is that the older that the subjects were, the more likely they were to wait an extra day.
Okay.
Because they understand time. Now, when you think about...
from the beginning? Without that second scenario set? Okay.
And they're able to, an older person, like someone who's 80, is able to instantly recollect 80 years of memory like that.
Right.
As opposed to a 7-year-old can only recollect 7 years. And so how they experience time, right, even that, less, how they have experienced time and process the value of it, it's much more valuable to a 7-year-old than an 80-year-old who can say, well, I can be patient because I understand time like that.
Right. So I discovered how to stop time, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Watch children. So when I take the grandkids to the park, it's like time stops. Tick, romantic.
That was really corny, Dad.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Love.
Yeah.
Love
It
stops.
takes a long time. And then
Every time I walk in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what happens?
It's amazing how hard it is. A call out to all the moms out there. I had no idea how hard it was to watch little kids. And 3 little kids. Wow. I mean, it was...
You have 9 grandkids.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
Imagine if we got them
9
all
together. That would reverse time.
So time preferences is that... all right, I'll give you a quote.
Okay.
And you are going to guess who says this.
Okay.
All right, I have
Let's
it
hear
here.
the quote.
I plan on continually eating poorly, ignoring my family, and refusing to plan my financial goals until I am critically in terrible physical condition, alone, and broke.
I would say no one.
No one ever.
No one ever.
You win. Winner.
Yeah.
Ring them up. I'm out of frame.
Yeah.
So the truth is that 1 in every 4 deaths in America is a result of heart disease.
That's terrible.
Almost half of marriages end in divorce. Now that rate's actually going down from the 70s and 80s.
Right.
But nevertheless, a lot of divorces happen.
Right.
Less people are getting married.
Right. I think that's part of it.
Next bullet point, 6 out of 10 Americans have less than $1,000 in their bank account. Now, these are all references. The first one, 1 in 4 deaths, heart disease, CDC. Half a marriage end in divorce, that's the American Psychology Association.
Right.
And then the 6 out of 10 Americans have less than $1,000 was a story out of MarketWatch that we've cited many times before.
And
so
with
don't
this,
feel bad is what I'm saying. Most people...
Right.
Most people make these decisions
Right.
on accident. They're sleepwalkers. They're going through life without a focus.
Right. And the other point I was going to make is that with this regularity,
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, of this consistent results is almost like it's really pursued passionately.
Consistency.
Right.
Right.
And that's absolutely the opposite. People are absently minded going through each day, but yet the results of human behavior is leading to a very consistent and very unsatisfactory result. So it just points to how proactive we have to be to bend the trajectory of our lives to not the one that we can just inactively follow along and be. We have to really bend that and get off of that track. And that's going to take, like anything with inertia, it's going to take energy and effort to bend off of that trajectory that we're on. Because if we stay on that trajectory, 1 in 4 deaths are a result of heart disease, half of marriages end in divorce, and 6 out of 10 Americans have less than $1,000 saved in their bank account. That's a trajectory that you do nothing that you're on.
Right.
To bend off of that takes inertia and energy and proactiveness to today make proactive steps in changing your behavior, changing what you're doing so that your future self is where you want to be.
And I don't think a lot of these...
This is scary.
A lot of
if
these
you don't do
educators-
anything, we can tell you exactly where you're going to be.
Oh, yeah.
That's scary.
Your probability are, and not you, but everybody's probability is to end up in one of these 3 bullet points.
You have 25% that end in heart disease, 50% in marriages, and 60% have less than that. That's big numbers by doing nothing.
That's the societal norm. So if you try and do anything different, society is going to shame you because now you're being different and you're challenging their way of life.
Anytime
so
different.
You're going to feel resistance in every area of life as soon as you change it. But all of these self-helpers, these developers, a lot of them don't. I've never heard anybody go into time preference as to why we are making these decisions.
Right.
And so a lot of times when I hear people speak on how we can make changes, we'll just go to the gym.
Right.
Well, no, why are you not going to the gym? What is the symptom?
Right.
What is causing the symptom?
Right.
And that's what we're getting into here. And I think the ultimate way to fight it is to start off, you have to recognize a problem and you have to recognize why the problem exists.
Right.
And a big part of that is simply procrastination.
Right. But and before we get into that, one last point I wanted to mention.
Why did I even say it? Sorry.
Yeah. Is that a lot of times one of the ways you can define that you're pursuing framework happiness versus temporary happiness is that the action or the activity you're doing is probably not going to provide you any temporary happiness or very little. So for example, your goal is that you want to save $1,000 in the next year. Well, the money you're putting away right now is, the $20 or $10 is not like, woohoo, I got that, means nothing. right? The $1,000 or the $10,000, that's going to mean something. You want to lose 10 pounds of weight. And so you're going to start working out. You're going to start not eating what you want to eat. That doesn't bring any temporary happiness. Working out maybe a little bit, but not eating what you would like to eat. Everyone's having dessert at the restaurant. You're saying no. Everyone's having wine. You're saying no. That doesn't bring any temporary happiness, right? But 3 months from now, you're very happy about where you are. Your weight's down. You're feeling better. You're in better shape. And that's getting closer to producing temporary happiness, but it required the investment and the commitment to framework happiness to get there. And now that leads to what you were just going to get into.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm glad you undermined my last comment so that you could slide that on in there, because it's very valuable.
I get to though,
but
and also because you threw away the notes and I still have mine.
I know if they could zoom out, they'd see that this office is actually littered with little balls of paper everywhere you step.
As you delete history.
So how do we fight this?
Okay.
In our opinion, it is breaking down the knowledge barrier so that you understand what we're talking about, you understand how to apply it in your life, and you can recognize the little things that you make these small, minute changes, and it completely changes your trajectory.
Right.
Whereas if you looked at a plane, right, and you change just 1 degree off, I mean, just a few degrees further away from the sun, and we would be freezing.
Right.
If we were a few degrees closer, we'd all burn up.
Right.
So just these little tiny changes can make a tremendous difference in our lives. And I think the first one to recognize is procrastination.
Yep.
Now, what is procrastination?
And I like your definition here.
Wait, no, that was a question that I had for you. What is procrastination?
So procrastination, and I'm going to read your definition.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Is fantastic. I mean, how could I improve upon it? So procrastination here, the cognitive bias, which misleads us. I love that.
Oh, this is my work.
Misleads us to think that a future date has less value than a present date. I love that because procrastination, a lot of people think, I'm just not doing it.
You missed the last part of that.
Well, I was going to get to it, but I frame that because I think you're spot on with that. And let me read it again. The cognitive bias, which misleads us to think that a future date has less value than the present date. Because a lot of people acknowledge I procrastinate or I'm not doing this or that, but I don't think they're really connecting why. Because there's a motivation here, and a decision not to do something as much as of a decision as to do something.
Right.
And so I think what you're doing is you're unpacking, you're peeling away some of the real emotional aspects of the decision-making process of procrastination. Because procrastination is simply, I didn't do it. It's a whole decision process that went in your mind. And what it really boils down to is what's important to you, how valuable you place today's momentary experience, and how important is a future momentary experience going to be to you, and whether or not that's important to you.
Right.
And the way you define this is that it's a cognitive bias, so we consciously make a decision, but it's misleading us to think that we don't have to really worry about the future.
Right.
We'll deal with it then. But little do we know that the future becomes today, and today was sometime in the past.
Has the same value.
Right.
So every single day has the same value. And what science has showed us through those studies, like the Oreo study that I mentioned, is that they came up with an equation that the value of future dates diminishes the farther and farther it gets away from today. So if you can imagine those dates sliding closer and closer to today and them gaining value. Now, when you procrastinate, you're putting it far out. The farther you put it out, the less value that date has. But as it comes closer and closer, that date has more value.
Right.
But your task has that same defined static value of you didn't want to do it.
Right.
But today is very important, and then it gets to urgent important, and you're like, oh, I want to kick that down the proverbial can, kick that proverbial can down the calendar again.
Absolutely. And it's just like if we go to food. Right. So I'm hungry and I'm looking forward to dinner tonight, right? So dinner is an hour or two away, so it has a fairly high priority. How important to me is dinner in 2024?
Not very.
None, right? So very, very little. But as it gets closer to dinner is 2 hours from now, very, very important.
Exactly.
But that little speck of value 20 years from now is going to be, soon to be, 2 hours from now.
Now, we can use technology to beat procrastination in a lot of areas as a life hack.
This is fantastic.
So Ray Kurzweil has a great quote, and I think we mentioned it before in the first one, that the computer in your... little background. Ray Kurzweil is basically like the father of AI in the modern world. We'll get back to that. So Ray Kurzweil said, the computer in your cell phone today is 1,000,000 times cheaper and 1,000 times more powerful and about 100,000 times smaller than the one computer in MIT in 1965. So that's a billion-fold increase in capability per dollar or per euro that we've actually seen in the past 40 years.
Right. Yeah.
Very powerful stuff. So how can we use these tools to defeat the tasks that we want to procrastinate?
Right.
And instead of procrastinating them, we assign them to computers who are much more efficient at completing these tasks.
And reminding us and keeping us on task.
Exactly.
There's so many useful tools, better now than just even 10 years ago, let alone 50 years ago, that can help us. Now, part of the first step of changing the future is changing today. And part of those steps are incorporating habits or technology that keeps us on track, so that we are, despite ourselves, because we really don't want to bend off of the trajectory. We're on an inertia track. And by the way, I would propose that our human behavior is almost always having a propensity to bring us back onto that old trajectory line that we don't want to be on. So it's not something it's one and done.
It's like gravity.
You fire the rockets and you're off your path. Right. It is for a lot of people. And the further away, and I would also propose this, that the further you get from your former trajectory, the easier it is to stay on your new projected trajectory. If you had no money and now you're a millionaire, obviously you're not going to be creating bad habits and get yourself back.
You want to learn a new language in America, much harder than learning a new language in that native country. Because now you're so far away from your normal, regular day that it's easier to keep it here. And then when you move back to America, you lose that edge.
Right. So there are some technology or technical tools, software and all that we want to share. And and you had a couple here that you wanted to.
Before we get into that, there's a great quote by a teacher, professor of communication at Fordham University. This is a few decades ago, Father John Culkin. It was in a TED Talk where they were talking about how we are using technology to communicate now. But we shape the tools and the tools shape us.
Yes.
We make these information technology tools because our brains are basically computers. They're computing all of this information. They're making predictions. Every step you take is a prediction that the right foot is going to land on the ground, the left foot's going to land on the ground, and that there's mass and structures that's going to support you. And our computers that we built are basically a reflection of our brains, and now we're using them. They're like an exoskeleton, and we're able to connect them to ourselves to be able to complete the tasks that we want to achieve. So that's what's here.
I would go one step further because there's lots of tools.
To like the Terminator.
Yes.
Down.
What I would say is that there's lots of tools to choose from.
Okay.
How it gets personal is your toolbox.
Yes.
Your toolbox defines your future. There's nothing that you're utilizing as tools to help you improve, help you to move off of that trajectory so that you're not online with everybody else.
Yep.
Your toolbox has to be very well equipped.
And then what kind of tool shed do you have?
Yeah. Well, we'll just stay with the toolbox.
And then where do you put that tool shed?
Yeah.
So there are many systems that computers are better suited for humans.
Okay.
We had a podcast our last podcast, episode 12, was with Ron Palapanapan of Active Hours. He developed an app that will get you your paycheck today. Instead of at a future date.
Now, hopefully you just don't spend that money and go out to dinner.
Right. And what he found, though, is that people are budgeting more effectively when they have their money today as opposed to, I get this lump sum, I spend it all, then I'm broke, and I wait, and then I get it all. That when they have it more consistently, they understand their consistent spending habits, and they're able to. And he also developed artificial intelligence, where if you get down to a point where you're going to have an overdraft fee, their system will automatically front you the money so that you don't get that overdraft fee.
Save the $35.
There's no charge.
Right.
You pay them what you feel like they deserve.
Right. I know it's a real interesting system he's built where it's all, you got to listen to the episode, folks.
Yep.
Episode 12.
Episode 12.
Video.
We'll have a link right here. Right here.
Yeah.
It's floating in this area right now. Anyways.
Nick will do that.
So
the magic man.
That's one representation of a system. You can go to, you don't know about this, but I set it up. You can go to debitize.com/FTT.
Right.
And this is a company, Debitize is a company, we met them over at FinCon.
Okay.
That will integrate your bank account with your debt, your credit cards.
Okay. All right.
They will put together an amortized schedule that makes daily payments on your debt so that it's not a huge hit to your bank account. So would you rather make a
$200 payment?
Well, I was going to use easier numbers.
Okay.
So would you rather make
$300
a $90 payment a month on your credit card?
Right. Or $3 a day.
$3 a day.
Yeah, there you go.
$3 a day makes much more sense.
Right.
Right? It's a much smaller hit to your bank account.
And then you go, you know what? My grande latte is $4. I think I'd rather see my credit card melt the debt down. I'd like to see that. And you connect it quicker. So I think what you're pointing out here, which is a very good point, is that you can incorporate human behavior that's largely focused at temporal happiness.
Intertemporal.
Right. And achieve framework type of goals, because you get an immediate happiness, a response. Okay, I used $3 today and I just reduced my credit card.
Right.
If I know that if I do this for 30 more days, I've just hit my payment. I don't have this big surprise. How am I going to come up with $90? You're actually incorporating some temporal happiness or temporary happiness in creating a framework type happiness experience.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So what this means is that in order to change the future, you have to change the present.
Correct. Absolutely. Yep. So there's one other tool that you wanted to share, Niall.
What was it?
The Zebra.com.
Oh, the Zebra.com is a cool one too.
Right.
So the Zebra, I have a few tools if you just want me to ring them off real quick.
Yeah.
We did a Friday 5 about our favorite investment app, so I can start there. Acorns is one cool one that I really like. They'll invest your spare change into an investment account.
Yeah. So look up Friday 5, a blog that you wrote.
Yeah, our favorite investment and finance budgeting apps.
Right.
There's 5 there. Another one, Zebra.com, you go to it. It compares auto insurance with digital insurance companies that are popping up left and right that you've never heard of, along with the regular institutions. So you can get a real-time quote. I think they say like within less than 20 seconds.
Right.
So that's a very cool tool to have. Another one would be, so we talked about debitize.com//FTT.
Right.
Acorns, Zebra.
And it's thezebra.com.
Yeah, thezebra.com.
Right.
And then the other one would be Ron Palpanapin's Active Hours, which fronts your money.
Yeah. And you do research. You Google, and you're looking
up
for
left and right.
different types of tools to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And it's not just financial. Of course, we emphasize a lot because having money does bring a lot of happiness.
Huge resource.
Yeah, but it's in a lot of areas, in your health, in your eating. You know, now we have Fitbit Watch, right? So all these things that you can use to help achieve your longer-term goals, to be incorporated into your framework type of abilities so that you have a more consistent temporary happiness experience on a day-to-day basis. So that's very good. Very good research here, Niall.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for episode 13 of the Financial Time Travelers podcast. Today is future tomorrow. No. Today is yesterday's tomorrow.
That's right. Decisions today change your tomorrows.
Decisions today change tomorrows.
There you go. All right. See you later.
I like how the first time we did the fist pump, you did the explosion, and then we did it now. I did the explosion.
All right. So let's wrap it up here. Boom.
We already wrapped it up. These are just credits.
Oh, okay. This is this kind of okay.
Been rolling.
BTS.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're so off book right now. I don't know why I have financial information.
So Active Hours is an app that lets you access your pay whenever you want. So if you work today, you can get paid today. If it's the middle of your work day and you need to take out pay for the first 4 hours of your day, you can take it out.
But clients remember their losses much more vividly than their gains.
Why is that?
Why? I know why. Because it stings.
Yeah, and it hurts.
It stings. It hurts the flesh.
Yeah.
And so sometimes even if they made 70% in the last 4 years, and we talked about this a little bit.